In at number 10, we have the Gacha. And would it really be a unique tamed list without this creature appearing at some point? Like, you look at this thing, and no other art creature is like it at all, and no other art creature has an ability like this thing as well. Also, the position of where you ride in the saddle is also something which is quite unique and isn't really done on pretty much any other creature, and also its saddle design is quite unique as well. Obviously, its main abilities being you can essentially extract resources from it as crystals drop from its back, and you can also feed them snow owl pellets to get even more insane loot out of these things, and that is just a really great quality of life thing. And if you're really lucky, you can get ones which do black pearls and even element dust. That was much bigger then back in the day, considering that Gen 2 wasn't out yet, because Gen 2 is an absolute farm of anything element. Next up, we have the Maywing, the essentially flying platypus, and this thing really does have a huge role in uniqueness, mainly because of its model design and also kind of because of its uses as well, and also the fact that it is an insanely great glider, and especially considering the level that this thing is unlocked at, it is insane that you can get this kind of performance out of a creature which its saddle is unlocked at level 19, and that is something which you really don't see with any other art creature. And also, again, talking about their model, they are just so unique in their design. There is no other creature similar to the Maywing. You will just know if you were looking at the Maywing. There's no other kind of platypus or things like that in Ark. You just have the Maywing, and that is it. That is just what the Maywing is. But also, it does act as a portable feeding trough as well, which is always a very nice ability to have, obviously with its milk coming out of the side of it. A slightly disturbing animation, albeit, but you know, at least it still gets the job done. And they can also gather berries on top of that as well, so that is just a nice little ability for them to have too. And yeah, overall a really well-rounded, unique creature. Now we've got the Shadowman, and this creature has to be on this list. It is just so densely packed with abilities, and also its model is again like no other. You could say it's kind of like a Thyla, but it is so distinctly fishy, not in a sketchy way of course, it just is kind of a fish, lionfish lion being its actual name outside of Shadowman. Like if you try to spawn this thing in with a command, lionfish lion is going to be the command which you're going to use. So yeah, they're kind of Thyla-ish in a way, but you know, a lot more fish and intact with all of that. Also, they do have a pack buff on top of that as well, and like you've seen there, they have insane mobility and abilities like no other creatures. They can also charge up their damage, which is a nice thing to have. They have the hydration buff, which is still quite unique considering only it and the Spino has it, and their taming method is quite a unique one as well, which I'm not really going to go into detail, but it is an absolute pain. At least it is for me, and it probably is for you as well, unless you're just one of those gods who can tame these things with no issues at all. In at number 7 is the Bulldog, and when this thing came out in 2017, there was no creature like it. There was not a creature as cute and yet ugly as this thing, and also the light pet ability is quite a unique thing as well, only used by this, the Shinehorn, and I can't remember what the other one's called, but it's a kind of lizardy thing. The Bulldog obviously being the more popular of the three, with the Shinehorn being next up, because that creature is honestly so cute. But like, you look at this thing and yeah, there is a lot to say about the Bulldog. It is so unique in its model design and its abilities as well, so it definitely does have to make this spot. Now, the Rock Drake is always a very highly respected creature, and it does have to be on the list for uniqueness, again coming out way back in 2017. And that just seems like absolutely crazy that the Rock Drake is like 6 years old now, and considering just how great this creature is, it really does show you what state Ark was in back then, and just how exciting a creature like this was, as we had nothing like it before. I'm not even sure if there were really any gliding tames in Ark before this thing. And yes, although the Wyvern did have the same tame method as this, still the process of getting the Rock Drake eggs was much more fun than something like the Wyvern, as the process of getting down into the red zone without any flyers whatsoever and getting out alive was definitely a huge huge challenge, and one which required a lot of skill and a lot of planning to go right. And then after you've got your rock drake, you've got yourself an insanely great flyer which can glide all across the map with insane speed, grappling onto any surface that you may see around you, and it really does hold that strong on Operation, whereas on other maps it doesn't quite do so good in the traveling departments due to there just not being many things to grab onto, because it can't really grab onto trees or anything like that. But still, its damage is one which can be held up to on any Ark map, especially if you want to cheese Rockwell with some Lazarus Chowder. That is a great thing to do if, you know, you're into choosing boss fights. It actually is quite fun though. It's no kind of cheat, of course. It is just, it feels so cheaty because it's just so ridiculously easy. Definitely a good strat if you're new on Operation. In at number 5, we have the Rio Ganatha, and this is definitely a much more recent creature which has been added to Ark, being pretty much the latest, I think, behind the Fastulosuchus, because I'm pretty sure that is out now, although not sure. Either way, very recent Ark tame, spawning on the island and the Lost Island in those locations which you can see there, and surprisingly on the old version of Ark, extremely rare to find, whereas on ASA no such issue occurs, and these creatures are by far some of the easiest out there to find, and it's actually insane how easy they are. But on old Ark you can always raise up your dino count or use the command destroy wild dinos, as that will help you. This gives you the advantage if you're obviously playing on single player or if you're hosting a server. If you are hosting a server though, just be very careful that, you know, you aren't disturbing anyone by using this command if they're, you know, taming a creature at that point, because that wouldn't be the best. So maybe try and do it when as few players are online as possible. And yeah, in terms of how you actually tame this thing, essentially I want to kill a male Rio Ganatha and get that pheromone gland out of it. Then you'll want to tame yourself a Bronto, get all of these resources which are on screen right now. That is only necessary for 100% effectiveness, by the way, which I don't really think is worth it. So especially if this is your first Rio Ganatha tame, then yeah, I don't recommend getting all of those, but just trap it after you got yourself your Bronto and your pheromone gland, and then damage it as much as you possibly can. And make sure to use Awesome Spyglass mod if you do have it, but also the magnifying glass will work wonders as well if you don't have access to mods, especially on the old version of Ark, as everyone has access to mods on the new one, but Awesome Spyglass hasn't actually been ported over yet, and I don't actually know if it will. Hopefully though. Then you'll want to feed that pheromone gland to your Bronto just before it gets out of the trap. Then you may want to hit it a couple of times as well, just to keep its health down, as it does heal really quickly. Then it's going to impregnate your dino, where those craving timers are going to happen, and then from there your creature's going to fall over, sadly die, so don't bring the most special Bronto ever, and then you will have yourself a baby Rio Ganatha, just like that. Now, the Reaper has to be here, but the reason why it isn't like the highest on the list is mainly because Xenomorphs had been largely done before, so maybe it's not the most original idea from Wildcards, but it definitely does fit the Operation theme. When you look at all of the colours and all of the purples, it just pops so well with this creature. And again, its taming method is pretty much the same as the Rio Ganatha, so the Rio Ganatha is just essentially a copy of the Reaper's taming method. And considering the Reaper is another tame from 2017, it is actually insane at how many old methods you could say are being used for new creatures and are still really cool to this day. And that is how you can tell it was designed well, especially with the taming methods like this one, which is lengthy. The only difference being that there's no kind of craving timers, you just need XP, which I think is better than the craving timer system. Hate that thing completely. And also it will impregnate you instead of your dino, so you don't even need to tame another dino. And there is also an indicator when its health is low enough, which is a nice thing to have, honestly, as it's kind of missing in terms of the Rio Ganatha. So then a magnifying glass is needed to be used, or the Awesome Spyglass mod, which, you know, isn't too much of an inconvenience, but it is just a little bit of one, so I don't really like the method as much. But yes, Reaper, very unique tame. In at number 3 is the Bloodstalker, and this creature is one which I don't think any of us really saw out of Gen 1 when we thought of it. But, you know, you don't really think of any of the creatures but when the map is announced, and this was definitely a huge surprise to many to have this, unless it was obviously, there must have been some kind of announcement of this creature before, so people would have known about it. But still, it was definitely a surprise when people found out about this creature, as it is so unique and so unlike any other creature. Its closest relative is what I meant to say, is the Aranio, which is the only other real spider on Ark, apart from the Bloodstalker, of course. But still, that isn't really a direct comparison, as they are so vastly different in appearance and use, because the Aranio is one of the most useless Ark tames, and I absolutely hate that thing. I don't like it at all, and I will just not use it. I'm not an Aranio kind of guy. Whereas the Bloodstalker, it is quick, efficient, fast, actually relatively easy to use once you've just got over the general hurdle of learning how to control it, and you can get loads of hexagons with it from all of the race missions, which is just a nice little thing to have, and it's definitely very appreciated on a map like Gen 1 or Gen 2 when you get hexagons, considering that Bloodstalker spawn on Gen 1 and Gen 2. Not sure about any other maps, they might just be exclusive to those. I'm pretty sure they don't spawn on Fielder, but it seems like a lot of things are spawning on Fielder. Either way, if you do have the chance to tame yourself a Bloodstalker at any point, the tame method is a really interesting one too, and very unique. In at number 2 is the Desmodus, and this creature just has abilities like no other. The Sanguine Elixir is just so useful that it has to be put on the list for unique creatures. Also, it is the only Ark creature to be able to harvest blood bags, and one of the few creatures which can actually go invisible, although not in the Wastelands biome of Extinction, as there is no night cycle, so I couldn't show that to you. They also do have a glide ability as well, which is a really nice thing for a creature like this to have, as it means you can travel around the map really fast. They can also grip onto walls like a Tappy Jara as well. Just make sure not to press E or the equivalent dismount button when doing this, as I'm sure many people have done that when using this ability, and it's something which you really don't want to get into. But at least if you have parachutes, that isn't too much of an issue. And also, on top of all of that as well, they have the same tame method as a Bloodstalker, which is just get yourself some blood bags from you, obviously, and then it will just eat them out of your inventory, and then Desmodus. And in at number 1 is the Velonosaur, and when I look at this creature, I realise no other Ark creature is like this. And although its tame method is pretty much as basic as it gets, just being a simple knockout one, its abilities have to put it in at the number 1 spot. It is essentially a living turret, and with the Velonosaur on Gen 2, there has never been a better time to go out and tame and use one of these things. And back in the dark ages of my YouTube channel, like 6-7 months ago, might have even been 8 months ago now, I did a Velonosaur taming guide, so if you want to check out slightly depressed sounding me, because that's what I just sounded like back then, my YouTube voice was nowhere near as energetic as I might say it is now, then you can go watch that, and I'll get about 2 pence from the view, and I would greatly appreciate that. Either way, in terms of this thing's abilities, you can tell it is a turret by the fact that it shoots loads of spines into creatures, and they glow a very bright blue, which is helpful in actually seeing if you hit the thing, apart from obviously all of the other indicators which you have. And I think this animation is just a little bit creepy. Like, look at it. I'm slightly disturbed by the animation from this angle, and at least their stamina drain is minimal though, so you can do whatever that is for ages. It is slightly creepy though.
So thank you to my wonderful patrons Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masijewski, and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.